"We will never come back here again." That's not a joke, but a definitive statement from millions of visitors, just hours after setting foot in San Diego. For decades, San Diego was a dream destination, a young, safe, and friendly city, where golden sunshine, blue seas, and welcoming streets were always open to everyone. However, in 2025, the Emerald of California is witnessing an unprecedented wave of rejection, even from those who once loved it. And that doesn't seem random at all. Instead of bright sunshine or a lively beach, what visitors see today are endless rows of tents stretching out of sight. Filthy trash, used medical supplies, and the shadows of people lying listlessly in the street. The once peaceful street corners are now occupied by an invisible force, making the concept of safety a luxury. In today's video, we'll delve into the heart of the urban nightmares unfolding right in the middle of San Diego, to understand that this is not just the story of a city losing its appeal, and perhaps it's a sign of something deeper, a crack in the very fabric of cities once considered symbols of the American dream. There was a time when mentioning San Diego would immediately conjure up images of La Jolla with its sunset-kissed cliffs, the wide-open Coronado Beach, and the red-tiled streets leading to seaside cafes, a place where youth, freedom, and safety once coexisted. It's America's finest city, a title for San Diego that everyone has to acknowledge. But today, that title seems to live only in memory. In the summer of 2025, the number of international visitors to San Diego decreased significantly, especially those from Canada and Europe. Contrary to expectations, the core reason for the problem wasn't the high cost, but rather the visitors' feeling of no longer being welcome. Instead of coming here to enjoy a relaxing vacation, what they got when they arrived was no different from paying to witness the decline of an America on the brink of collapse. Statistics from the city government reveal an undeniable truth. An average of about 1,000 nuisance crimes are recorded each month across San Diego, and this number tends to skyrocket in the summer. Even coastal areas that were once San Diego's vacation icons, such as Pacific Beach and Mission Beach, no longer retain their inherent safety. According to police reports, dozens of incidents involving harmful behavior are recorded each month in these areas, a reality that has made evening walks, once the most memorable part of a vacation, something many people now have to carefully consider. But the unease didn't stop at the streets. Sometimes it's the places that seem peaceful, have clear signs, and a polite appearance that become the starting point for unforgettable experiences, not in a very positive way. Near the San Diego Naval Base, a facility called Green Massage Spa, which advertised itself as a healthcare provider, was found to offer services inconsistent with the nature of the relaxation and therapy industry. A tourist from Colombia shared, "I went to a massage parlor to relax after a long day of traveling. But the sexy girls and the shady services that take place inside really stun me." Although the city has taken clear steps, including filing a civil lawsuit and demanding the closure of the violating facility, the negative images left by such a distorted travel experience are not easily erased. And perhaps that's the most worrying thing. When a single disappointment not only affects an individual, but also erodes faith in an entire city once considered a dream destination. Even nature, once considered San Diego's silent treasure, is contributing to driving tourists away. La Jolla Cove, a romantic symbol of the city, now reeks of bird and sea lion waste accumulating around the cliffs. Some tourists were completely shocked the moment they stepped onto the beach. Not by the beauty of the waves, but by the thick stench in the air. Employees at the Blue Ocean restaurant said, "Customers now often choose to sit indoors to avoid the unpleasant odors emanating from environmental pollution." And although revenue hasn't dropped significantly yet, they admit they clearly see the risk of losing foot traffic, the number of people walking along the tourist street. Once a haven for those seeking refuge from chaos, San Diego is now a place that makes people want to turn back. If a place once hailed as the essence of the American West is also losing its ability to preserve the very things that made it special, how many other cities are following a similar path? But no one dares to say it, because that's only the beginning of the story. More horrifying images await behind, where the line between tourism and survival becomes breathlessly fragile, and is also one of the core reasons for the exodus of tourists from the tourist paradise. If you've ever strolled along the street near Petco Park, once the pride of San Diego, hosting tens of thousands of spectators for every baseball game or major event like Comic-Con, you might feel unsure whether you're in a resort city or in an unnamed makeshift refugee camp. Right next to the walls adorned with posters advertising the summer festival, there was a long line of tents, carts filled with personal belongings, tethered pets, and the watchful eyes of people with nowhere else to go. San Diego is currently ranked 6th on the list of US cities with the highest number of homeless people. In 2025, the entire district had over 10,600 homeless people, while the number of temporary beds was only about 8,100. Despite the city's efforts, the number of new homeless cases continues to increase at a rate nearly equal to the number of people being assisted, creating a seemingly endless cycle. The irony is that the most famous tourist spots, where the city once placed its hopes to maintain its image as America's finest city, are now becoming the clearest reflection of urban decline. The Gaslamp Quarter, the Convention Center, and Petco Park, once symbols of events, culture, and entertainment, are now depicted through images of crowded tents lining the sidewalks, trash mixed with the footsteps of tourists, and old RVs parked incongruously between upscale restaurants. It felt like stepping out of a post-apocalyptic movie, where beauty still lingered somewhere, but was covered by a hazy layer of abandonment and helplessness. This is causing San Diego to gradually lose its tourism position, not only in the eyes of domestic visitors, but also from Canada, Europe, and markets that were once a stable source of revenue. Every Monday, the city conducts periodic cleanups around the 17th Street neighborhood, where approximately 160 homeless individuals once lived in makeshift tents. The homeless are forced to condense their entire lives into a few plastic bags, push them onto shopping carts, and bring their dogs and cats with them, leaving without knowing where they will go. Behind them, city workers and environmental crews began their work, collecting torn blankets, clearing away old belongings, and sometimes using excavators to remove any remaining debris. What they cleared away was material, but what they couldn't erase was the smell of urine still soaked into the pavement, or the still desperate eyes of people who had just been pushed out of what they had temporarily called home. No one is saying this is the solution, but somehow it still goes on, repeating like an urban ritual amidst a city that no longer has room for the unbeautiful. However, as soon as the cleaning team left, many people returned to the same spot in the evening. It wasn't an act of defiance against the government, but simply because those people had nowhere else to go. I still vividly remember what a long-term homeless person at the corner of 17th Street once said, "They chase us away every week, but they never tell us where to go. It's all about dealing with the leftovers, not addressing the root cause. They call it scene management, but for those who have been here long enough, it feels more like a way to blindfold tourists before major events. They call it scene management, but for those who have been here long enough, it's simply a way to blind tourists, clear the path for major events, promotional photos, and flowery praise." But if this situation continues, San Diego could face a chain reaction. Budgets depleted, small businesses withering, a young workforce leaving the city to find opportunities elsewhere, and leaving behind a rapidly aging community. And even more seriously, the image of America as a tourist paradise could be replaced by emerging international destinations where reality isn't polished by the spotlight of events. Because, is a city still worthy of being called a destination, if the very people who once called it home no longer have a place to stand? In the past, San Diego was hailed as one of the most budget-friendly destinations for nature lovers, with its mild climate and relaxed West Coast culture. However, by the summer of 2025, that dream seems to have become just a memory, as the cost of a vacation here is far beyond the affordability of many middle-class families, especially international visitors from Canada and Europe. The hotel bill alone made many people reconsider. A night at a mid-range hotel around the Gaslamp Quarter can now cost up to $220, while coastal resorts, if they still have vacancies, can easily exceed $300 to $400 during peak seasons like Comic-Con. That doesn't even include hidden fees like taxes, peak season surcharges, and even parking fees. A normal meal at a casual restaurant can cost around $20 per person. But if you accidentally choose a reputable restaurant near a tourist area, the bill could reach $100 for a dinner for two, not including tip. For those who have dreamed of a romantic evening by the San Diego coast, the truth is, they are paying for the sunset with a bill that is anything but romantic. Even sightseeing is no longer as accessible an experience as it used to be. Tickets to the San Diego Zoo, USS Midway, or Balboa Park range from $25 to $50 per person. Want to save money? You can buy the Go San Diego package for $94 a day. But that's a price that's enough to make many seniors consider staying in the hotel to save money. Public transportation isn't really cheap either. A one-way trolley ticket is $2.50, while gas is nearly $5 per gallon, making renting a car or driving yourself a luxury option. Those without personal vehicles may have to spend nearly $100 just to travel between tourist spots in the city. A recent study also showed that a family of four needs to budget at least $1,200 for a short weekend getaway in San Diego, not including airfare. In the summer of 2025, the round-trip ticket price from Chicago to San Diego reached $820 per person. So, how much would a middle-class family from Ontario or Alberta likely have to spend? And all of that still doesn't take into account the value they actually receive. With deteriorating sanitation, understaffed services due to rising labour costs, and many public areas occupied by temporary shelters, many tourists are leaving with a feeling like they just paid a premium bill for an experience that was not at all worth it. So, in the end, dreams are being sold in San Diego. Who can still afford to buy them? If you've ever driven into downtown San Diego on a weekend afternoon, you'll understand what it feels like to hit reality. The roads that were once open and cleverly planned are now gridlocked by a transportation network that has been overloaded for years. There are no priority lanes, the signs are confusing, and the roundabouts leave both tourists and local residents unsure of which way to go. Ironically, the city once hailed as Southern California's icon of sustainable planning now leaves people so disoriented that they forget they're on vacation. Even GPS apps are no longer a savior, because when taken into narrow streets or blocked by temporary tent camps, many tourists are forced to turn back in despair. But if you think you're done just by getting there, you should prepare yourself again. Because finding parking in the Gaslamp Quarter or around La Jolla Beach is now almost a game of chance. Many tourists complain that they spend over 40 minutes just trying to find a legal parking spot, while parking fees can range from $5 to $40 per day depending on the area, not including fines for illegal parking. Even areas considered to have public parking are being reduced in size to make way for green urbanization projects, which may sound ideal, but are actually eliminating hundreds of parking spaces at a time when tourism demand is on the rise again. What's the result? A long line of cars drove around in circles, not to sightsee, but in hopes of snatching a temporary parking spot. Additionally, San Diego's infrastructure, particularly in older tourist areas like Old Town or around Balboa Park, shows signs of serious deterioration. The road surface is cracked, traffic lights are malfunctioning, and the drainage system is poor, so even a light rain is enough to flood the entire street. For those who visited here 10 or 15 years ago, this decline is not just a physical sign, it's a feeling of disappointment. Can it really be called a travel experience when you spend most of your time struggling with traffic, worrying about your car being towed, and getting frustrated by a cracked sidewalk? Economy San Diego is more than just a destination. For decades, this city has been a symbol of an experiential economy development model, where visitors not only purchase services but also seek emotions, memories, and tranquility. But what happens when that machine is no longer positive? Since mid-2025, many local tourism businesses have begun to report a noticeable decline in international tourist arrivals, particularly from Canada and Europe. Hotel room occupancy in central areas is no longer as full as before, even during peak season. Some hotels that were fully booked throughout Comic-Con season are now offering significant discounts, but bookings haven't recovered as expected. A hotel manager in the Gaslamp Quarter shared, "We used to believe that summer would be our lifeline, but that's not how things turned out. Both international visitors and American families are considering other destinations." Part of the reason is probably due to rising costs. The increase in the minimum wage in the tourism and restaurant industries, reportedly aimed at ensuring fairness for workers, has created difficulties for small businesses, which have already been struggling with high operating costs for years. Some restaurants in Mission Valley or Old Town have had to shorten their operating hours or close on alternating days of the week due to a lack of staff. But the influence doesn't stop there. As tourism slows down, a series of supporting industries are also facing difficulties. Transportation, sanitation, event organization services, and even advertising printing shops and car rental centers along the beach. Many freelance guides no longer have enough tours to work regularly. Some travel service providers were forced to temporarily suspend operations, not because of poor quality, but simply because they no longer had enough customers. Particularly noteworthy is the absence of high-spending tourists, those who previously came from Canada, the UK, Germany, etc., who tended to stay longer and spend heavily on services. Instead, the majority of current visitors are domestic, travel in small groups, and tend to be more frugal in every aspect, from dining to entertainment. Some souvenir shops and cafes around Seaport Village even shared that sales this summer were significantly down compared to the same period last year. There was no explosion to signal the collapse. Instead, there are cracks quietly spreading. A restaurant quietly closes after lunch. A hotel employee quietly leaves because there are no more shifts. A tourist district becomes empty in the middle of peak season. Those images are like an undercurrent, washing away each fragile layer of sand beneath the economic model that San Diego once placed all its faith in. For many San Diego residents, the changes in recent years haven't come as a complete surprise. It's like living in the midst of a receding tide, slow but irreversible. The streets that were once bustling with the sounds of tourists and the laughter echoing from late-night eateries are now silent at night. It wasn't because someone ordered the silencing, it was because people gradually left. The cost of living is rising rapidly, especially rent and health insurance. Families who have lived here for 2 to 3 generations are now forced to leave to find new homes in more distant cities like Yuma, Tucson, or Bakersfield. Some people say they still love San Diego, but that love isn't enough to pay the bills each month. Despite the city's efforts, such as expanding housing assistance programs through the San Diego Housing Commission, or relief packages from organizations like Father Joe's Villages and the Alpha Project to provide meals and temporary shelter, many still feel they are swimming alone in a vast ocean, with the last life raft swept away by the waves. There's no shortage of people who are still trying to stay put. Small business owners in North Park are trying to keep prices down to compete with the big chains. Some coffee shops like Better Buzz Coffee or independent bookstores like Verbatim Books have become spiritual havens, where people can still find a little bit of the old San Diego feeling. However, despite all the efforts, the reality is that a sense of skepticism has crept into every corner of the city. People are no longer sure if this city still belongs to them. They felt trapped between two worlds. On one side, the vivid memories of a city once as vibrant as a painting, and on the other, the cold reality where they had to count every penny and every step they took onto the street. When even those who once helped build San Diego now feel like strangers in their own hometown, who can save this city? Hope remains, found in community economic recovery programs like Shop Local San Diego, which is encouraging people to support local businesses, or the rental assistance packages that the SDHC, San Diego Housing Commission, is promoting in 2025. But for those efforts to bring about real change, perhaps more than just a budget is needed, rather a consensus. There's a strange feeling enveloping the cities that were once the pride of America. It's a silent, unobtrusive slide, but strong enough to erode the trust of residents and visitors day by day. San Diego is just one of many coastal cities facing the same set of problems. A housing crisis, declining tourism, overburdened infrastructure, and a local economic ecosystem as fragile as thin glass. But the most concerning thing, perhaps the uncanny resemblance between San Diego and seemingly unrelated places. From Venice Beach, Portland, to even Honolulu, cities that once sold dreams to tourists are now paying the price for that very model. The same formula, building an economy based on emotion, attracting investment in tourism, real estate, and events. But when emotions turn negative, the domino effect begins. Prices rise, workers can't make ends meet, residents gradually withdraw, and tourists start choosing cheaper, more peaceful destinations like Vancouver Island, Portugal, or coastal cities in Mexico. Some experts have called this a new kind of collapse model, where the collapse doesn't happen because of a lack of money, but because of a lack of trust. No one calls it by name. No one is claiming that San Diego has failed. But the signs, from closed shops to empty beaches, speak more clearly than any analysis. If San Diego, with all its reputation, resources, and ideal climate, is struggling so much, what about smaller cities? However, there is still hope. Some new models have started to emerge. Path, People Assisting the Homeless, a non-profit organization in California, is piloting a housing-first model combined with therapy and vocational training for the homeless in areas such as Mid-City and El Cajon. Meanwhile, Airbnb has also launched its Airbnb for Work program in several coastal cities to repurpose short-term rental spaces into flexible workspaces, providing local businesses with a stable income stream instead of relying solely on short-term tourists. Will these small efforts be enough to turn the tide? No one is sure yet. But if we don't start with small breaking points, the entire model could collapse faster than we think. San Diego didn't fall overnight. It wears down day by day, in the hesitant glances of tourists, in the crunch of tent wheels on the road, and in the silence between the empty rows of seats that were once packed with laughter. Perhaps this is still a beautiful city. Maybe one day it will recover. But at this point, with so many cracks piled on top of each other, the question is no longer, how has San Diego changed, but rather, will we still recognize our own America? And if a place once called America's finest city is in such deep crisis, what awaits smaller cities that don't have blue seas, golden sunshine, or million-dollar billboards to hide the reality? Please share your thoughts in the comments section below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so we can continue to tell stories that not everyone is willing to listen to, but everyone needs to know. Each share is an opportunity to add one more person who understands, one more person who cares, and one more ray of hope for those whose lives are lived in silence. This video is not intended to condemn any organization, individual, or political group. All information presented is based on publicly available data, official reports, and field observations from multiple perspectives. The stories, images, and perspectives presented are educational in nature, reflecting social realities to stimulate constructive discussion without creating incitement, panic, or stereotyping. We do not condone any illegal behavior whatsoever. We do not normalize suffering, and we do not turn human misery into entertainment. This is not a conclusion, but an invitation to reflect together, to dialogue together, and to hold on to the remaining humanity within each of us.